You're listening to Life Repair Recovery Talk Radio with Rick Thompson, only on LA Talk Radio.
Hello, this is Allison. Welcome to Life Repair Recovery Talk Radio with your host, Rick Thompson. This show is about sobriety and recovery. We focus in 3 different segments. 1, the point of view of the relatives who are dealing with a member of their family that is suffering from alcoholism so they can understand them better. 2, the point of view of the insurance companies and health providers and how they relate in the industry. And 3, the feelings and emotions that alcoholics and addicts go through. Our call-in number is 323-203-0815, 323-203-0815. And now your host, Rick Thompson.
Hello, Allison. Hello, everyone. It's good to see you. Tonight, we're going to shift gears a little bit. We're going to talk about sex addiction. And there's a light side to that, and then there's this other side, which is very strange, that I have a hard time wrapping my head around. And pardon the pun, because there really was no pun, but I'm so paranoid about what I'm going to say that I don't know. Okay. There is... Dr. Mary Koster is going to be on with us in a short moment, but she told me about, when I was on the phone with her, this website. And I don't know if you've ever heard about this, Allison. It's called yourbrainonporn.com. This is a legitimate site. It's a site that has articles that are more collegiate, I guess, and educational than anything else. And just to start, wondering if your problem is porn related. The first bit of advice is to see a good doctor to rule out any medical abnormality. If you have done so, try this simple test. It will help you distinguish between porn-induced ED and performance anxiety-induced ED, the most common diagnoses, in parentheses. You ready?
Yes.
Here we go. 1. On one occasion, masturbate to your favorite porn, in parentheses, or simply remember what it was like. 2. On another, masturbate with no porn/porn fantasy, period. Try masturbating to sensation only. I'm sorry, excuse me. Shortness of breath. In parentheses, no fantasy, with the same speed and pressure you would experience during intercourse. Compare 1 and 2 quality of your erection, the time it took to ejaculate, if you can, in parentheses. A healthy young man should have no trouble attaining a full erection and masturbating to orgasm without porn or porn fantasy. I did not know this. See, you learn something new every day. Not that this was on my mind when I got out of bed this morning, but this is where we are. So I guess you're just going to have to deal with it. If you have a strong erection on number 1, but erectile dysfunction on number 2, then you likely have porn-induced ED.
So you really just can't get interested without having that type of intense stimulation.
But if number 2 is strong and solid, you have trouble with a real partner, then you likely have anxiety-induced ED. That would be erectile dysfunction for those that aren't up to the words. Interesting. And the Jesus. I mean, that's, I can't even imagine something like that. I'm very, how do I put that without sounding like a real? I'm lucky to have not had that experience in my life as of today. So, and I'm sure that a lot of people have this problem. Men have this problem. And it must be just, it's life-altering. It's emasculating. It must be psychologically just terrorism for a grown man who cannot function anymore. And, thinking also that the effect it has on the relationship. Now, then when you start getting into pornography, you wonder what kind of effect does that have on a relationship? Right. And I think we're going to probably find out here soon, because I'm anticipating hearing from Dr. Koster, here shortly.
So I have a question. Is it basically that men have a issue, men that are addicted to porn have an issue in developing a sexual relationship with a normal physical flesh woman under normal circumstances?
From what I've read today, there's the main focus is now on young men who have so much cyber activity going on out there. There's so much pornography and so many images out there that it becomes an addiction earlier in a young man's life, and he gets to the point where, that's it's a terrible deterrent for him. Mm-hmm. We've got a call coming in. I'm thinking this is probably the doctor. Hello, welcome to Life Repair. You're on the radio.
Hi, is this Rick?
Yes, it is. Is this Dr. Koster?
Yes.
It's so nice to hear from you.
Yes, and thank you so much for contacting me earlier.
Of course.
It's been a great opportunity.
Let me start off by just asking you, out of the gate, what is your overall experience within the therapeutic arena in reference to porn addiction and sex addiction?
It's an interesting question. I am 36 years sober, and I have 40,000 hours of individual clients. I've been in private practice all along. What I am seeing is sex addiction and porn addiction is to my office. It comes to my office at about 10 years or 15 years of sobriety, when they want more to their lives and they're not able to connect to other people. It has really been a startling thing to me. The more, sex addiction is like an addiction to fantasy, and it begins very young. But what's happening is pornography and the internet is exposing people at a very young age, and they mix it with substances. When they get sober is when I see them, not early in sobriety, but usually after they've been sober for a few years, and it's a hidden addiction. Sponsors don't know, friends don't know, they're popular, they're successful, they have careers. It is a hidden type of thing that they're embarrassed and ashamed of.
Okay. Where do you think that this starts from? Do you think that there's a possibility that the individual that's addicted to sex has been molested when they were little, when they were children?
It used to be that way, but right now what I am seeing is exposure to pornography at young ages. There's a website called My Brain on Porn, and what it does is it starts you thinking about what happens to the brain when it has been exposed to this many sexual objects.
Right.
In human history, this has never happened before. So, no, I don't think so. There are occasions where people have been molested, but the ones that I'm seeing are ones that well, if you've ever seen the DVD called Pleasure Unwoven, it explains the part of the brain that's involved in addiction. It is the pleasure zone of the brain. It is deeply hidden within the brain. And addicts themselves, or substance abusers, they're almost addicted to pleasure. I mean, whatever gives them pleasure, whether it be pistachio ice cream, whether it be brownies, whatever it happens to be, and when it gets connected to sex, then it keeps upping the ante, just like when you were using drugs or alcohol, and you keep needing more. Sex addiction is the same. They need more stimulus. They need to up the ante. It needs to be more secretive. And then some of them eventually get in trouble. I have seen them that have gotten in trouble with the law, where they're masturbating in a public park or masturbating outside of a grocery store. High-risk things, because it ups the pleasure.
Kind of like Pee Wee Herman in his situation 20 years ago, where they caught him masturbating in a porno house in Florida. Yeah. Right, I remember that.
Yeah. It's very sad. Lots of people are affected by this today. Marriage, it causes people to want to be in love. In love, there are many stages to relationships, but the first is the honeymoon stage, where your partner looks just fabulous. Everything is great about them. But as soon as the honeymoon stage is over, the person who has problems with sex addiction is no longer interested.
Right.
They have to have that drug experience to be able to get an erection. And since I work mostly with men, I've seen two women in the history of my working as a psychotherapist, only 2 women, but I've seen many, many, many men. I recently moved, so a lot of my literature and things are still packed up. But there are characteristics that many of them have in common, and they also have 20 questions, very similar to the 20 questions in that would be in Alcoholics Anonymous. I have those here. I don't know if you want me to.
Sure, go right ahead.
Okay, here are the 20 questions. Do you frequently experience remorse, depression, or guilt about your sexual activity? Do you feel your sexual drive and activity is getting out of control? Have you repeatedly tried to stop or reduce certain sexual behaviors that inevitably you could not? Are you unable to resist sexual advances or turn down sexual propositions when offered? Do you use sex to escape from uncomfortable feelings, anxiety, fear, anger, which seem to disappear when the sexual obsession begins? Do you spend excessive time obsessing about sex or engaged in sexual activity? Have you neglected your family, your friends, your spouse, or relationship because of the time you spend in sexual activity? Do your sexual pursuits interfere with your work or professional development? Do you avoid romantic or sexual relationships with others and restrict your sexual activity to fantasy, masturbation, and solitary or anonymous activity? Are you increasingly unable to perform sexually without other stimuli, such as pornography, videos, poppers, drugs, toys? Do you have to resort increasingly to abusive, humiliating, or painful sexual fantasies or behaviors to get sexually aroused? Has your sexual activity prevented you from developing a close, loving relationship with your partner? Have you developed a pattern of intense romantic or sexual relationships that never seem to last once the excitement is gone? Do you only have anonymous sex or one-night stands? Do you usually want to get away from your sexual partner after the encounter? Do you have sex with people with whom you normally would not associate? Do you frequent clubs, bars, adult bookstores, restrooms, parks, public places in search of sexual partners? Have you ever been arrested or placed in legal jeopardy? Have you ever risked your physical health with exposure to sexually transmitted diseases? Has your money you spent on pornography, phone sex, hustlers, or prostitutes strained your financial research? Have people that trust you express concern about your sexual activity? Does life seem meaningless and hopeless without a romantic or sexual relationship? Mm-hmm. Those are the questions. I didn't say the one, but those are the questions involved with sexual addiction.
That pretty much covers all the bases.
They have 4 programs in LA. They have Sex and Love Addicts, which they call SLA. They have Sex Addicts, which is called SA. They have Sexual Compulsive Addiction, which is SCA. And they have Sex Addicts Anonymous, which is SAA. These programs in LA appeal to certain groups of people. The gay community is, I think they're more involved with the SAA.
Wow.
And pornography with the Sex and Love Addicts. This is a very, very big thing. There are not very many people trained to help people in this area. I came across this on my own because I work with people, and I'm really fascinated with what happens to people in recovery. What stops us in recovery from developing the life as big as we would like it to be? What are the problem areas that stop us from becoming who we can become? And in this particular area, it involves connecting to people, having families, and other things that normal people do. And since we're addicts anyway, it's not unusual that this connects to people who are in recovery.
Right.
It starts before, but it becomes a real problem.
Sure. Because as you strip away one thing, then another thing's going to take its place. So if you're getting rid of the dope and the booze, then you're going to be looking at the food, and you're going to be looking at the sex, or you're going to be looking at the, if you've got money, the shopping scenario.
A relationship dysfunction.
Right. Now let me ask, can I ask you a question? If for the listener out there, if you have a member of your family that is suffering from sex addiction, that you know for a fact this is happening, first of all, what would be the habits that you would see to find out if that person is in fact a sex addict? And once you find that out, how should a family member approach that person to try and get them some treatment?
Well, it's the same as with any addiction. They do have a codependent program for sexual addiction. And also Al-Anon, where you better, if you're a suspect that somebody is having a problem, and if you're in a partner relationship, like with a spouse, and they stop being interested in you, and they're up all night long on the computer, you know there's something wrong. It's very similar.
Yeah, they're not studying for finals. Not to be flippant. But,
that's correct.
You know.
That's correct. And they do the same thing. They'll pick a fight. You go to bed, and they stay up all night long.
Okay.
Anyway,
Right.
Wow.
So
but what you do is you start practicing the Al-Anon program with any form of addiction. You stop getting angry. You stop nagging, scolding, or complaining. You don't lose your temper. You know, because what happens is, if somebody's behavior is out of control and you get pissed off at them, now you're even. They fucked up, you're pissed, now they're even.
Right.
So you can't get angry because you let them off the hook entirely.
Right. There's no. They don't take responsibility for it because they have a justifier.
Yeah. So the first thing I would tell a family member is get themselves to a program that teaches them how to respond to these people. Any kind of addiction element is involved. You don't make threats you don't intend to carry out. You know, you don't, I did so many of these. If you don't nag, scold, and complain, don't lose your temper, don't push anybody but yourself. Find out about what this is about. Get the DVD called Pleasure Unwoven. You can order it from Amazon. It's under an addiction, some kind of a place for addiction, but it is fabulous. It explains the part of the brain that's involved. And what you're talking about in recovery is when you give up the substances which cause you which is the high on the pleasure end, you want that pleasure back again. So you look for other things that might be able to fit into its place. But it explains it. Pleasure Unwoven is a phenomenal DVD that educates people. The other thing is your brain on porn. You might take a look at this and see what this is really involved before you confront people. What you would confront them with is, I miss you. You know, I miss what we had when we...
Right.
Right.
You still there? Did we lose you?
I'm still here.
Okay,
I'm still
good.
Here.
Okay,
you didn't lose me.
Okay.
I just got another call coming in. Okay, now they're gone. Thank you.
I have I downloaded just the top copies of your brain on porn, and I am just there's just like 13 sheets of just all this data. It was overwhelming.
It's a huge problem.
It's and I didn't really realize what a problem it was until you gave me this information and I downloaded it. And I'm just trying to put together some reasonable questions, and I mean, it's just, my God, it's just overwhelming. You know, it's the one question that I had off the top of my head though was, is there a difference in the type of outlets that these people use and their behavior connected to it? So, like, would one person be acting one way for straight sex, another one for gay sex, another one for whatever else may be out there? And I don't want to start getting real specific because there's some twisted stuff going on in this world. But you get the gist of what I'm saying.
They keep having to up the ante like you do with substances. You have to have more. So you have to have it. Maybe you start making love outside behind the trees. Maybe I'm telling you, with this partner, you know, he had to have an affair with her sister or with a mother or something else that upped the ante to get that kind of a passion.
Wow.
But what it is it just keeps growing, and it interferes. It takes your money. It takes your time. people at work, I'm talking about professional people. The man that had his child that he left in the car in the back seat who died, he was found with pornography. That's what he was doing, and his child was in his car seat in the car and died in a hot car.
Oh, Jesus.
This is really and it's becoming a much bigger deal as the internet exposes people. But what you said is very important. The brain on porn. People should look up, and particularly anybody who's listening who thinks they could have a problem themselves. Find out more about it.
This site covers all the ground that I could possibly even, it's just ridiculous. And there's people that are, that even put comments and opinions.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. Where would you, if you found this out with a family member that they had this issue, is there a treatment center per se that you could take them to? As if you were to do a deal with drugs or alcohol?
I personally, I'm in private practice. I don't really know. No, I'm sure that there are. Right now, it's, people have many different approaches to this thing. To me, it's really a sensitive thing. But I think your programs that are out there, your sex and love addicts, these programs are like AA. That's the first thing that I would do. Mm-hmm. If I suspected that I had a boyfriend or a husband that was involved with this, I would go to the codependent of sexual addicts. I would talk to them. How do I handle this? I would go to Al-Anon and take a look at how angry I'm getting and what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
Then I might find out. I would ask him to attend one of those programs. But you have to start out with how it's affecting you. If you're a partner, you no longer have a love relationship.
True.
And you miss it. And then they will tend to blame you because, as we do as addicts, you're too fat, whatever is going on, but it isn't. Underneath there is, they have another thing that's going on. But they also don't feel good about it.
Well, of course not.
Now, there's a couple of things. Patrick Carnes is an author who does a lot of books, very layman-oriented on sex addiction. One's called Don't Call It Love. The Betrayal Bond was the first one that I picked up. He has many of them now. Patrick Carnes. He's really the founder of the concept of, what was his book on? The Shadows. He has another book on. But he talks about sex addiction, where it comes from, and what it's involved with. The other would be, there's another thing that, what is a normal relationship? Well, sex, they compartmentalize sex. Sex becomes a thing in itself. Mm-hmm. Whereas love in a relationship is about intimacy. It's not about lust. Right.
That's true.
Anyway.
A lot of people don't know that they have that confused. I had that confused until I grew up. Then I figured it out.
Yeah.
It took a long time.
Anyway, I know you have other people. You can call me back and I'll do this. I'll talk to you again at another time if you want more information.
Yeah.
I am a treasure trove of information on this subject.
I really appreciate you taking the time, and we could listen to you. This is amazing. You're telling me things that I've never even thought about in reference to this, and it's when you look at the cause and effect to what it does to the relationship dynamic between the man and the woman. My God, if you don't get down to it when you're married and put everything on the table, whatever the hell it is, I don't see how you can make it. Because if something goes wrong, nobody knows where the start point was and how to remedy it, if that's even possible.
I saw an article on the feed of CNN maybe a year ago, it could have been 2 years ago, where they took single men in Japan. At 35 years old, 50% were virgins. How could this be?
35-year-old men, 50% of the 35-year-old men in Japan were virgins?
Of the single men in Japan were virgins.
Wow.
Yes. How can this be? because the internet gives them the sexual satisfaction they're looking for. They don't have to worry about connecting to people. They don't have to worry about communicating and all the other things. And how this is going to affect, well, it's going to affect everything, but this is getting worse and worse and worse and worse. But in recovery, it's also getting worse. Even with people who are significantly sober, this is their hidden secret.
That's incredible.
That is incredible.
I mean, do you think that's just in Japan? That's not in any other country that you've been made aware of, where that kind of thing is repetitive?
I don't know, but Japan happens to be a tech country. So they just had that article. I was just fascinated by this.
That's incredible. That is fascinating.
Absolutely.
I mean, you wouldn't even think that. Well, the women over there are insanely beautiful women. I mean, I just can't wrap my head around that one, man. Wow.
I guess.
Anyway, you're exploring a big issue. It's very, very big. I'm only familiar with it as it's connected to recovery and substance abuse. I have never seen anybody come to me who had a problem with sex addiction that was separate. You know, this is just, I work a lot in addiction, so the people I have seen are on the other end of it. They're in recovery.
I think we've got another call coming in. Hang on a second.
Okay.
Hello there. No, stay on, Mary. Hello. Welcome to Life Repair. You're on the air. Well, whatever happened to them, they went somewhere else. You still there, Mary?
I'm still here.
Okay. Well, I actually thought that a mutual associate of ours was calling in, but he's not. So he was there, but then he went away, and that happens a lot in radio.
I have a question. Do you find, you said you had only 2 female clients. Do you find it that this is how, in your experience, I know it's not as much something that women, you don't have many women involved in this as clients. In what ways, how would you say the differences are with your women clients from men? Is it the same?
You know, the women clients were earlier in recovery. The men that I have worked with have developed careers. They have, you know, it's the women, you know, just the women have, some of these women, the ones that I had seen, many times a day would have people coming into their homes. Yes, it affected them, but they weren't my clients. The ones that I'm much more aware of is the male end and the professionals as it continues on, and it affects their ability to have families, to connect to a permanent relationship, and to build their life in a meaningful way.
I see. So with women, it was less of an issue, but they're normally women, or that you've seen that were early in recovery and maybe just had some bad habits carrying over still because of low self-esteem or something like that, maybe?
Mm-hmm.
That's incredible. I'm still trying to get past that half the guys at 35 are just, I just can't even.
Virgins.
I can't understand it.
Right.
I mean, you know, wow. I mean, how does that happen? I mean, these guys go to work. These guys go to work and come home, and then they whack they masturbate all night long until they go to sleep, and that's how they keep from having a real relationship. I mean, that's just that. You know, as smart as these people are, that would be the. But then again, you know, sometimes when you've got that much going on in your head, maybe you are incapable of having a true, meaningful give and take relationship with a woman. You know, when you've got that much analytical action going on within your cranium, I don't know. It's amazing. It's just amazing.
Well, as you read more of the literature on the brain to porn, you realize that the brain starts changing and it starts developing separate, so that the sexual component is separate.
Hang on just a second, Mary. We've got a call coming in. Don't go anywhere. Welcome to Life Repair. You're on the air.
Hi, this is Tony.
Hi, Tony. How are you?
I'm great, thanks. How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing? We
okay.
have you and we have Dr. Koster on at the same time.
Okay. Hello.
Hello.
Hi, doctor. How are you?
I am fine. Who am I talking to?
This is Tony. You probably have met him before. He's a friend of ours.
Oh, okay. Hi, Tony.
So,
Hi, how are you? What's going on?
well, have you had an opportunity to listen to what's been transpiring here on the air, Tony?
Not much of it, no, because I've been busy, being of service to some people who are having a really rough time. So
I understand.
I apologize.
Oh, that's okay. That's fine.
So maybe you can give me the thumbnail sketch.
Well, thumbnail sketches. We're talking about sex addiction, and the doctor has been guiding us through some very interesting waters that I hadn't even taken into account of the behavior patterns of some men that transpires from the time that they're very young. And they get involved in a relationship that's intimate, and you have to keep ramping it up. And that's basically why the sexual end of the relationship starts to deteriorate. And the one thing that she had just said to us, which was mind-boggling, is that I want to make sure I get this right. Doctor, you want to just go ahead and say that again in reference to the men in Japan, because I don't want to misquote that.
It was on a news feed with CNN a year ago, maybe 2 years ago now, when they did a survey of men single men that were 35, and they found that 50% of the single men at 35 were virgins. And
how many?
That was not a surprise to me, because I see people who are virgins, men who are virgins. But this is part of addiction to pornography. It is a life of itself.
How's that grab you?
Addiction to fantasy.
Yeah,
I see.
Yeah, that was. Yeah, I couldn't even get my head around that one. I mean, I don't know.
So Japanese men have an addiction to pornography. So thus, because of that, they are.
They didn't say
mostly virgins.
They did not. This article did not say anything about sex addiction.
All right. Well, then that they basically.
That's my take on it. I don't think that that's an unusual thing. I think people in the United States, there's a high percentage of men that are virgins as they go through life because of the addiction to pornography.
Oh,
it's too scary to connect to women.
Can I ask a question? You were saying that the brain develops differently when sexual focus is directed towards a technological source rather than towards a human partner, where intimacy and relationship would be more likely to be required. Would you expound on that a little bit, please?
On your website, From the Brain to Porn, young teenage boys today are getting their first experiences with sex, with pornography online. The human being has never had this much exposure to this kind of stimulus for that kind of concentration ever before. So the brain gets developed so that when there's a person, they literally cannot perform unless it's highly stimulated. Drugs would stimulate it. But this is a brand new thing that's coming up, especially in the last 15 years, but each year it appears to get worse and starts younger. I work with people who are in recovery, and this is the hidden addiction in recovery. Nobody talks about it.
So they're actually not able to be stimulated without that extreme...
No. That's true. But it also causes relapse because it gets connected to methamphetamines or crack cocaine or cocaine. And they can't get the erection and the same way without that stimulus. And they miss it.
Yeah.
So many of us will relapse due to other kinds of feelings, pain, and somebody died or something happened, but not the sex addict. Theirs is they want that orgasm.
That's the release. That's the release, and that's the buzz. All right.
Yeah.
I met a kid like that a few weeks ago at a meeting over in Beverly Hills, And I didn't know how to help him. That was what he was. I mean, you would never even know. If you look at this kid, he looked normal. And, he was hitting the meth and he was, doing the porn. He says, that's what I do. Yeah. And I looked at him and I said, well, can you explain a little bit about it? Like, how did you emotionally get to that point where you felt that you had to do that to feed yourself in some way? And, he really couldn't give me a straight bona fide answer. When if you're that deep in the water, I can understand that. But it's just, it was very complex to me, and it was very sad to see this person in this shape.
It is. When you start doing more research on this, you may find somebody who's been exposed to 25,000 images of people.
Right.
I mean, I'm not talking about this and it shifts the brain. But the Brain on Porn website gives you so much information as you download and keep it going. It gives you everything to do with this. I saw that on Dr. Oz, daytime TV, only I was watching it at 3 in the morning because I happened to wake up one night, and he was talking, they had all these couples where there was no sex involved. These married couples where the sex had ended. And it was on daytime TV. That's how big a deal this is. And he is the one that directed me to the Brain on Porn website.
There's a lot of data here. Tony, have you had any direct experience with people that you have been counseling that have had these kind of issues?
I mean, I've had people who've had issues, they're trying to go out with women, but I mean, a lot of it is because they just feel insecure and are afraid of rejection, as I can make it best I can make out.
Right.
I don't know if I could speak with any kind of specificity to what the doctor is saying regarding these situations. I mean, it all sounds plausible.
Right.
But again, I don't know. I don't know what the answer is. I mean,
right.
The answer. I don't.
From a clinical point of view, obviously, neither one of us do because we haven't. That's not our specialty. But it's.
Well, I think.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. What? I'm sorry.
They have 4 programs that are involved with this. 4 in Los Angeles, and they can get together and talk about this and have sponsors and go through the low self-esteem and the other issues involved. But this is a hidden thing. People in recovery don't talk about this.
Yeah, you're right. They
don't talk about it.
What would the treatment be to completely stop engaging in viewing of porn, and then where do you start? Then what do you do?
It's the same as substance. You have to stop the behavior, and it's very difficult to stop that behavior unless you have a support system behind you.
Right.
They do have, sex and love addicts. Those are people who are addicted to being in love. Many of them have a sexual component, a sexual compulsive component to that, because when you're in love, in the honeymoon stage of a relationship, you've got that extra drug that ups the ante on the sexuality. When the relationship continues, you go to the next stage, and you don't have that drug of the honeymoon. These people are not interested. They want another relationship that puts them right up on the top.
Right.
And they talk about this.
So the honeymoon phase is just repetitive, and that's all they want.
Over and over again, but they never develop because it's not a real relationship.
No, it's not.
It's a relationship with fantasy and make-believe who you think they are.
Right, when they're not that person at all.
Yeah.
We've all been there. Sorry, not to make light of it, but we've all been there, Well, I want to thank you, Tony, for calling in. I don't want to take your whole evening up. I'm really glad.
No, I don't. I mean, I wish I could speak more. I don't know. I don't know what the answer is to this. I mean, not that the answer. I mean, no, actually, it's probably really no answer. It's just that I would think that there'd be, there are people that I've come across in my life that I believe are asexual, but I don't know if that means that they're watching pornography as an alternative. Mm-hmm. But I've known some people that and it just don't seem to be like, how like when guys get together, they talk about, oh yeah, I was on a date the other night. Oh man, there were some girls at this party. Boy, were they beautiful, or boy, they were hot, or the standard dialogue that people will talk about, men will talk about. And I know a couple of guys in the years that I've known them, and some of them I've known a long time. I've not ever heard them once talk about going out, going on a date, or boy, I was at a bar last night and there were some really beautiful women there. I only remark on that now based on what you were talking about earlier, because I realized like those kind of things were conspicuously absent from conversations with these particular men. So I always thought, oh, that's interesting. I said, they just not either they're very, very stealth about it, or they just don't care. Or I shouldn't say don't care. Everybody cares about something. I mean, they just don't have a way of expressing whatever it is inside of them that doesn't make them want to do this, or doesn't care. I mean, not doesn't care. Is not interested.
Right.
I guess. I mean, I don't know.
Right.
It's
certainly a topic that all of us need to investigate a little bit more. That's because that never even came into play with anybody that I was sponsoring. Because I really didn't think of even going there because there were no signs. But then again, the reason there's no signs is because they're not telling you about it. So there's that, right? Yes. Gee, for an alcoholic and drug addict to not cough up anything or fess up, gee, boy, that's a rarity.
It's true. I mean, like I said, I don't know what the answer is. I don't know how to. I don't know.
The answer
anyway, I just don't know.
The answer is to start talking about it and asking questions. Well, as a clinician, if I have a client and who doesn't have a girlfriend or something, and I see him, I said, "Are you, what are you involved in pornography?" I mean, I ask those questions just like I ask substances. I just asked the questions because I didn't used to ask the questions until so many of them arrived. But they're normal people out there, but it's a hidden thing. It's secretive. It makes them feel bad. It is hidden. And it's shameful. All of the things.
With a woman, it's easier to hide because it's not so, it's not so obvious. With a man, there's obvious dysfunction. It's, if it's not, he's not able to perform, and if it's not going to happen, it's not going to happen. And with a woman, it's easier to hide as well. And a woman can just slip into fantasies, but it's not so obvious, so it's much more easy for women to hide it. But I think that it's probably something that is present in a lot of women's lives in one form or another. I know I'm guilty of a few of those things on the list that you read, and it made me wonder and maybe a little bit more aware about myself and my habits and how I am in relationships. So
I also have a list of characteristics that sex addicts have in common.
Okay, can we hear those?
Like what?
Yeah.
Like what?
As adolescents, they use fantasy and compulsive masturbation to avoid feelings, and they brought it into their adult lives with compulsive sex. Compulsive sex became a drug. They used it to escape from feelings of anxiety, loneliness, anger, and self-hatred, as well as joy. They tended to become immobilized by romantic obsessions. They became addicted to the search for sex and love, and as a result, they began to neglect their lives. They sought oblivion in fantasy and masturbation, lost themselves in compulsive sex. Sex became the reward, the punishment, the distraction, and the time killer. Because of their low self-esteem, they use sex to feel validated and complete. They try to bring intensity and excitement into their lives through sex. So their lives got emptier. Sex was compartmentalized instead of integrated. They became addicted to people, unable to distinguish among sex, love, and affection. They searched for some magical quality in others to make them feel complete. Other people were idolized and endowed with a powerful symbolism. They were drawn to people who were not available. They were drawn to people who would reject them and abuse them. They feared relationships, just like Tony said, but they continued to search for them. In relationships, they feared abandonment and rejection. But if they got a relationship, or were without a relationship, they felt empty and incomplete. So it was the drive to go to the relationship that made them feel complete. Once they got it, they weren't interested. While constantly seeking intimacy with another person, they found the desperate quality of the need to make true intimacy with another person impossible. Wow. They developed unhealthy, dependent relationships that eventually became unbearable. When they did get the love of another person, it never seemed enough. They stopped and started lusting after others. I remember one particular fellow. He loved the chase. And once he married over and over and over again. Loved the chase. Once he got them, then he started abusing them so that they would move away from him so that he continued to chase them.
Right.
And you can tell where this is going to go. Finally, they said they filed for divorce, they filed for all this other stuff, and then he's obsessed with them. This is the love of my life. That's how
incredible.
That goes. That's sex addiction. I'm in love with being in love. And I can only be in love if you're not there for me.
Well, Doctor, I want to thank you very much for coming on. We're running a little skinny on time. And Tony, thank you very much for calling in. And just a plethora of information. And this has been a great show. And I am very grateful for both of you for calling in. And thank you for your time. Have a good evening.
You got it. You too, Rick. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
You're listening to Life Repair Recovery Talk Radio with your host, Rick Thompson. What the show is about, it's about sobriety and recovery. We focus in 3 different segments. The point of view of the relatives who are dealing with a member of their family that is suffering from alcoholism so they can understand them better. The point of view of the insurance companies and health providers and how they relate in this industry. And the feelings and emotions that alcoholics and addicts go through. Don't forget, while you are listening, to call into the show at 323-203-0815, 323-203-0815. Now back to your host, Rick Thompson.
Thanks, Allison. That's all the time we have for this week. I hope that you've been able to take something away from this discussion. I'd like to thank my guests, Dr. Koster and Tony, and Allison. I mean, this has been one of the best shows that we've ever done. I hope that you can join us next week. And remember, you can download any of our previous shows at www.latalkradio.com. Our mission is to provide a safe platform for those who are suffering from various forms of addiction. We're not professionals in the recovery business, just people willing to listen and offer suggestions to help those in crisis. And now, a few parting words from our friend in the afterlife, the late, great John Flynn.
Disappointment is the caboose on the tootsie train of expectation. Anything you want from anybody, you give them what you want from them. It's the only way you're going to get it. Life is about giving, not getting, day at a time.
Thank you for listening. Good night and good luck.
You're listening to Life Repair Recovery Talk Radio with Rick Thompson, only on LA Talk Radio.